Today, I'm joined by Douglas Jacoby, who shares how we can keep trusting God even when he feels silent.
Not every believer I meet has gone through the dark night of the soul, but there have been plenty of times where I wish God would speak, give me direction, and I feel like he leaves me on my own to make my own decision. Someone said a lot of things about my wife and me. There are a lot of things that were simply not true. They said we were opposed to mentoring and discipling. We were against small groups. They said our family was a mess. These were things that are just not true.
At this point, did you ever feel God had left?
I'm not so much looking for a feeling, I'm looking more for information, or should I say direction. Silence in that respect, if that makes sense.
Was there a moment that shifted something inside you?
This feeling of abandonment by others and betrayal, I think it's quite akin to a feeling of abandonment by God, or the raw emotions accusing him of betraying us, as you find this in many of the Psalms. A lot of people we love and trust and respect hear slander, and we know eventually they'll know it's false, but it may take a year or two. When we were in Scotland, it took a year before the church said, oh, okay, that's why you couldn't be part of it. And they fired the abusive leader who had been reported to the authorities. And they said, enough of that. And we knew they would figure it out eventually, but this was definitely a period of silence. And in some ways, I could say it was a 5-year period of silence.
How did your faith begin to change during that time?
Well, for the first time in over 40 years, my wife and I felt we're not really part of our church anymore. We're no longer part of the denomination we've been in. So that was a pretty big change. But it's hard when we see hundreds or thousands of people turned away from us because of slander that they believe they don't check out. That's hard. A lot of these are people that we helped to become Christians initially. I know it's all going to come out in time. There are just some things I thought would come out more quickly. For example, 25 years ago, my wife and I reported abuse, egregious abuse in the church. This is well before Me Too movement. And we thought action would be taken. Action was taken, but it was very mild. It was inadequate. We tried again to help people who were exposed to understand what's going on. With an abuser, you can't just be ignorant. Hey, you're on the board of the church, or you're an elder, or you're a prominent woman in the church. And it wasn't really taken seriously. Action was taken, but not what should have been done. And we tried again in 2025. So we've been, you could say we brought this on ourselves in a way by being whistleblowers. That's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. There's physical pain, which we deal with. I've had 3 major surgeries in the last year. Okay, physical pain. But when you talk about spiritual pain, emotional pain, relational pain, this is so much. Young people don't get that. They think, oh, if you lose a friend, that's not good. But if you break a bone, that'll be horrible. You and I know breaking a bone is not the end of the world. But if you lose friends, family, people turn against you, that's hard. And I think of the pain that the Lord felt in the garden, leading up to the Garden of Gethsemane, knowing that he would be betrayed, knowing it from the beginning, it says, and having to go through that alone. And God strengthened him in the garden, and yet, in a way, it was silence, because his hope was that the cup would be taken away. No, and he felt the abandonment, even though Psalm 22, Ele, Ele, lama sabachthani, even though it's a psalm of hope, that psalm begins with abandonment. On the cross, Jesus feels abandoned. These words are very appropriate, though he knows, Psalm 22:22, that he'll be back. Even though you know things will work out, Nancy, it doesn't mean you have better perspective, but it can still be very rough. And I think the Lord lets us go through such times, and not just public figures. All of us deal with things like this. And I think the most painful thing, it's not the physical pain. It's not the financial pain of poverty. It's not social pain. It's relational. spiritual pain.
It's betrayal, because when you think that people are your friends and you may have a relationship with them for years, and then all of a sudden they turn on you, and that's
Oh,
hard. That's hard.
someone tell me if I have anything to do with it, you'll never speak in any country in the world where I have a say. And most of my ministry is international. I'm usually in 10 countries a year. Well, the thing is, a few years before he told me that, we were friends. And a sermon he did, I really enjoyed. He did it in the Garden of Gethsemane on the topic of betrayal. And often when I speak in Gethsemane, I'll refer to the pain of betrayal, not my situation, but I actually point to his sermon, which was very good. So it's a bit ironic that to end up being betrayed by the person who did such a great message on betrayal.
I always say, like, God is watching this. God knows the heart of all men and women, and He knows where you are in your life, in your walk. And are you walking with Jesus? And are you showing a life that's built on Christ?
In the end, the Lord will deal with everything. We don't have to take revenge. We're forbidden to take revenge. We don't have to necessarily vindicate ourselves. Sometimes it's wise to, sometimes not. But yeah, this has been a season for us, for my wife and me, of pain, loneliness, but also great clarity. And now emerging into this next phase of life. And this really is a different phase of life now. We're very encouraged. We don't know exactly where we're going, but we feel God's presence, and we feel that He wants us to encourage others however we can. And sometimes that means sharing.
He may be silent, and we don't know where we're going to go or what we're going to do next, which is so hard for so many of us, right? We want the answer. Lord, can't you show me the road? And He's not saying anything, and He's just silent. But the thing is that you have to trust Him more than anything, because He is the one He's guiding you. He's refining you, and he's polishing you, and He's getting you ready for your next assignment, which is so hard. But in the meantime, what would you say to somebody if they're going through this about waiting?
First, I'd say you're in good company. No temptation, no set of challenges has seized you but what is common to humankind. And maybe consider Paul, the apostle, in many ways, his most personal letter. I mean, he often speaks personally, but he speaks of his pain, especially in 2 Corinthians. And then there's that famous chapter 11 where he's trying to help the Corinthians who want an easy life and who are attracted to leaders. They call themselves super apostles, who promise health and wealth and everything will be great. And he says, look, we're in rags. We have poverty. You want me to boast? Let me boast about my weakness. And it's the suffering, it's the persecution, the things that were considered humiliating in his society. And then he says near the end of that chapter, but above all, it's the pain I feel for the church, which he uses the phrase, I inwardly burn. This is what is the most painful to Paul. It's the relational things. It's not getting beaten with rods or being stoned, shipwrecked. This guy, you talk about trauma. Wow. But I think we can look at Paul. And of course, suffering is a major theme in 2 Corinthians. And if we said, what is his point? What's he actually saying? Suffering is the mark of true leadership. It's not success. It's suffering. And we need to hear that because our religious world is so shallow.
What do you hope one of the viewers out there or somebody out there, what do you hope they hold on to?
I hope they hold on to the Lord and His Word. Cherish the relationship with God. Don't stop spending time meditating on the Word, because our minds can be renewed as we do this. One of the great things about our God is He does speak. This is not the God of the ancient philosophers, who's an abstract, concept or principle. This is not the distant, aloof God of Islam. This is God. So in my book, When God is Silent, I'm not saying that God's normally silent, but we will experience times of silence, and in all different kinds of ways. And I think the Bible itself invites us to explore this topic and to be real, to be honest about what's really going on.
Okay, so everyone, Douglas wrote this book, When God is Silent, The Problem of Human Suffering. So he was touching on that a little bit. Where can they find this book and find out more about you?
Well, they could find the book at my website, which is douglasjacoby.com, and that would give you that's got a lot of material.
Okay, what would you like to leave my audience with today?
You may not be in the valley right now. You may not be in the ditch or in the darkness, but you have been, or you will be. It's just a matter of when. And faithfulness to God is not singing his praises when everything is sunshine and peaches and roses. Faithfulness to God is hanging on, even if you feel inadequate to hang on, but hang on to the Lord, stay rooted in his word. The season will pass, the light will come again, but you don't get to say when that's going to happen. On that, we need to trust the Lord.
Can you trust that God is still with you, even when he feels silent? Well, I hope you were encouraged today and reminded that God is in the silence. God is closer than you think. He sees you, he loves you, and he is still working in your life. And remember, you've been won by the Son. Shalom.